How will you know if you're living in a police state? Well, here's a few factors you'd have to take into consideration. Whenever you're walking along the street, if the police can just willy-nilly come up to you and just pull you over and push up against a wall and search you and do whatever they want, basically, and let you go later, but just go over your whole body. Then take data off of you and information and put it into a little cell phone or some kind of object to collect information. And another factor is that you could be just shuttled away to secret prisons where you disappear and no one knows where you're at, not even your family or your lawyer. Well, do you think this can happen in America? Well, yes, it can. It's been happening under our nose for quite a while now. Since 2004, police officers in New York City have pulled over almost 3 million people walking along the streets to pat them down, sometimes putting them face down on the sidewalk. Believe it or not, while American citizens are watching, passersby, some obviously abhorred and some giggling, they're face down the sidewalk. 90% of these people are Hispanics and blacks, and believe it or not, over 9% of these people, they did nothing wrong. They just happen to be the wrong color of skin. A similar thing is being played out in Arizona under an immigration law where the police will have a wide array of power just to pull people over and do the same thing they've been doing in New York City, basically to see if they're illegal immigrants. But for most of these people, and this is a scenario that's being played out in the United States, most people apprehended today that might be considered illegal immigrants or some kind of criminal, or if you're doing something against the state, the biggest problem won't be temporary jail time. It'll be that the fact that you will disappear into some sort of what I'm calling gulags American style. Speaking at a convention of sheriffs and policemen in 2008, James Pendergraft, who was director of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, said this is actually what he said at this police convention. If you don't have enough evidence to charge someone criminally, but you think he's illegal, we can make him disappear. This is a fact. Countless people have now disappeared into a system, something you don't hear about because it hasn't been widely publicized. In fact, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office has come forward now, ICE, and said they have 186 secret detention centers located across the United States where people are detained, where they cannot see a lawyer, hear from their family. And believe it or not, an investigative report has shown that most of these facilities don't have working bathrooms, they don't have heaters. In the middle of winter, people are shoved into corners and they're cold, they're frozen, they don't have food. The worst thing besides the inhumane treatment is the fact that they can't have a lawyer and the family doesn't even know where they're at. But it isn't just illegal immigrants that are getting caught up in this system. American citizens are disappearing as well. One case has been finally publicized, a fellow named Mark Little in North Carolina who was living in a group home because he had served some jail time. When he went into the jail system, they had inaccurately put his place of birth as Mexico. Well, all of a sudden, the immigration people swooped into the group home, grabbed him, deported him to Mexico, believe it or not. It took him 2 years to get home. And here's what his brother had to say, who is a veteran of foreign wars. We're an all-American family with 2 soldiers and a family member who happens to be handicapped. It's like spitting on my uniform that you would do that to my brother. Mark Little is not the only American citizen this has happened to. This has happened to others. In fact, it happened to a fellow named Hector Velaz in Arizona. He spent 13 months in a detention center where no one knew where he was at or he didn't have a lawyer. Now you ask, what's wrong with this? Well, American citizens are under the Bill of Rights. They have a right to a lawyer. They have a right to appear before a judge. In fact, the Founding Fathers fought secret detention. The British did it to Americans. So in the Constitution, they put the writ of habeas corpus. That's a Latin word meaning bring forth the body. In other words, bring forth the person so a judge can hear his case and he can have a lawyer. It was so important that they fought a war over this particular provision. Obviously, something needs to be done about illegal immigration. The federal government, especially under George Bush, completely collapsed. Barack Obama has done nothing about it. But we certainly don't want to erect a police state. And a national ID card is not going to make it any better. In fact, Fox commentator Judge Andrew Napolitano has said the ID card is a monstrosity, and what's happening in Arizona now may be the slippery slope into what may be eventually making us all American citizens carry a national ID card, which, as I've talked about earlier in other podcasts and in commentaries, it will be an intrusive tracking device. Something's happened in our country. When we're stopping Americans on the public streets, frisking them like they're criminals, everyone's become a suspect. We're pushing to have an ultimate tracking device called the National ID card. And we have secret detention centers, which no one knows about, where people disappear. Again, we want to do something about illegal immigration, but we don't want to destroy the rule of law and our Constitution in the process.